Hello. Very often I get asked about Indian queer writers, and I'm constantly asked to come up with names of people who are working in the vernacular literature. And I try to come up with these names as often as possible, but very often what seems to be the case is that they tend to be writing in English. And most people are keen not only on those who are writing in English, but also people who are writing in regional languages. So people are always asking me who are the queer writers that I can name who are actually writing in Bangla. And I honestly, can't come up with too many names most often. So I haven't made a Pride Month video yet. So I decided that this is going to be probably a good idea to make a Pride Month video. So here I am. I'm actually going to make this video about a Bengali writer, a Bengali queer writer, but somebody who is practically unknown. I mean, I'm sure that there are people who are readers of Bengali literature who are aware of him, who have heard his name, but he is not terribly well known apart from that. Very few people have heard of him. I've also spoken to some people who teach or who study at Bengali literature departments. Even they don't seem to be aware. So, what I really wish to do today is make this rather brief video on somebody called Krishnagopal Mullick. So Krishnagopal Mullick, I just showed you the cover. Let me show you what he looks like. I haven't seen any other photograph of him. So this is the only photograph of him that I have seen. This is what he looked like. Krishnagopal Mullick. I'm very lucky in my friends because and one particular friend, somebody called Shayantan Mitro, because it was Shayantan who first made me aware of him. Shayantan was working for his PhD under my supervision, and he told me. He keeps telling me even now about writers that he thinks I should take a look at. And he said, "Are you aware of Krishnagopal Mullick?" And I said, "Krishna who?" And he said, "Well, exactly." And so he said, "Well, Shanton is extraordinarily talented in the sense that he will go into College Street, and from heaps of books, he is going to be able to pick out that one book that he thinks I'm going to like." So he says, "I got this book. This is Shanton's copy, by the way. I don't have a copy of this book. This is his copy." He said, "I've got this book, Nirbachito Krishnagopal. You might want to read it." So I thought, okay. And he also marked certain short stories for me, and he said, "These are the short stories that might be of interest to you. There's no need for you to read the whole book if you don't want to." He also gave me a journal, a little magazine called Hawa Unoponchash, and in which was published a novel by Krishnagopal Mullick called Byuhoprobesh. But be that as it may, I will be talking about Krishnagopal, at least I hope to be talking about Krishnagopal on the 23rd of this month, when I'll be taking part in a webinar panel discussion on gender and sexuality in literature organized by Sappho for Equality and British Council and Kolkata Center for Creativity. I don't know how much time I will get, so I thought that this is probably a good time for me to make a video on Krishnagopal and to talk a little bit about him. Okay, so what can I say about Krishnagopal? Well, let me just give you the dates first. And after that, maybe we can go into the detail of his life and of his work. He was born on 3rd of June in 1936. And then at the age of 19, that is to say around 1955, he started writing short stories. He did his Bengali honors from Presidency College, as it then was. And then in 1963, from 1963 to 1967, he served as the sub-editor at the Statesman. Yeah, so therefore his English, as you can imagine, was very, very good. In 1967, he suddenly took voluntary retirement. This was also the year in which he got married, and he set up Jagaddhatri Press, which functioned till 1981. Yes, and this press was run from his residence, which is 17 by D. Shujasen Street. Very famous address for those who follow Bengali literature and those who follow Bengali literature the way it is produced from Kolkata. For those of you who are interested exactly where 17 by 1D Shujasen Street is, it is actually, just across the road from College Square on Shujasen Street. So if you actually get out of the College Square's south exit, the south exit, if you get out of College Square south exit, you are going to pretty much bang your head against a building, which is where Krishnagopal Mullick lived. Now, what happens is that he then keeps publishing these little magazines, yes? So he publishes Golpokobita, which ran till 1973, after which he started to publish Kourab, then he published Hawa Unuponchas, as I told you, Hawa 49. Now, this is when, so from 1993 onwards, or maybe a little earlier than that, he began to publish some of his own work as well. Yeah, and so therefore Byuhoprobesh, the novel, was published in 1993, and then a short story that I also wish to talk about on the 23rd called Bondhur, Pontha. This was published in Kourab in 1994. Krishnagopal Mullick died on 24th of March 2003. Why should we be paying attention to Krishnagopal Mullick? Because I think he is that very, very rare commodity. He is a man who is married, who has children, but at the same time, he writes without any qualms at all, without any euphemism, without any beating around the bush about his homosexuality. In fact, he goes so far as to say in print that homosexuality is the prime driving force of his life. It is extraordinary that here you have a man who is sitting in North Kolkata and who's writing about his homosexuality while at the same time living the life of a married man with children. I really can't get over it. And also what we find in Krishnagopal is utter lack of guilt, of shame. The idea of coming out of the closet does not apply to him because of the very simple reason that he was never in the closet. So that doesn't apply to him. He also is fascinated by several things. He's fascinated by history, he's fascinated by geography, he's fascinated by world affairs. One of the most astonishing discoveries that I made while I was reading his novel Byuhoprobesh is that he is somebody who is really interested in exploring the city. And the way in which he does that is that in a very skillful way, he sort of weaves this astonishing textile of a text in which his exploration of the city is woven in with the exploration of his self, with the exploration of his sexuality, with the exploration of his gender. He talks about masturbation. He talks about the way in which, he was, sodomized when he was barely in his teens. There are all these incidents there. But you see, the astonishing thing is that, for example, in Byuhoprobesh in page 38, he already writes about the way in which he was sodomized. He was probably 14 or 15. He talks about exploring the city. He talks about falling in love with this boy called Manoj. At least he's called Manoj. And all of that. But the funny thing is that there is no sense of guilt. There is no sense of shame. And also, I think, there is no concept of consent. So, do you see that he belongs in a very strange way to that time when when people talked about sex, consent was simply not considered an issue, and so therefore he doesn't talk about consent. Even when he gets advantage, even he's taken advantage of at the age of 14 and 15, it never occurs to him to say that, oh, I was forced to do this. I didn't want to do it. He didn't ask for my consent. It doesn't. He simply says, oh, then once he had finished, he gave me a piece of cloth. And he says, oh, you should rub yourself down, you should clean your legs properly. So there is that. And along with that, there is this sense of, oh, what a wonderful thing this is. So the sense of wonder about his sexuality is combined with his wonder about the world, his wonder about the city. And that is something which I think is really, really important. What makes Krishnagopal Mullick's life and his work even more remarkable is the fact that he comes from clearly a very famous family. He comes from a very famous family, a family that has produced filmmakers, a family that has produced movie stars. Well, 2 movie stars, but there may be more. So therefore, he comes from he comes from one of the best known families in Kolkata. Now, anybody in his position would have thought twice before revealing his homosexuality, not him. Also, in this book, one finds several reminiscences about people who have known him. And what comes across is a man with an astonishing joie de vivre. He really enjoyed living. He really enjoyed life. He liked to dance. He liked to sing. So therefore, and he had an acerbic wit. So therefore, he was an all-round fun company to be with. And I find that, it is shocking that at a time when we are celebrating queer literature, we are celebrating queer culture, somebody like Krishnagopal Mullick should not be a part of that celebration at all. So what last year I did speak about him at a webinar. I was told that webinar would be put on YouTube. I checked, it isn't there, but doesn't matter. At least this video is going to be there on YouTube, and I'm hoping that nobody is going to take this one down. And of course, I shall be speaking about it on about Krishnagopal Mullick also on the 23rd. Now, what I really wish to do is to, in case you are in doubt as to what is the extent of the candor of this man, I will read out this section from the short story that I'm actually, I was going to say I'm actually translating, but I'm just sort of thinking about it at the moment. So, here is a part that I think I would want you to read out. He is incredibly attached. He is incredibly attached to College Square, and this particular short story called Bondhur Pontha is actually set at College Square. Let me tell you when Bondhur Pontha was published. I told you that already, didn't I? Bondhur Pontha came out. It came out in 1401, which is the Bengali calendar, but 1401 is 1994. So this was published in 1994. What I actually want to do is read out this particular section where he talks about the way, I find it an astonishing paragraph, which is where he talks about how the nature of College Square changes according to the time of day. Then I think this is really rather extraordinary. এই মিডনাইট পর্যন্ত সারাদিন গোলদিঘি বারবার হাত বদল হয়। ভোর 4টে থেকে 6টা মর্নিং ওয়াকারদের দখলে, 6টা থেকে 9টা ক্লাব সাঁতারুদের দখলে, 10টা থেকে 12টা স্কুল কলেজ ইউনিভার্সিটি মুখর ছাত্রছাত্রীদের পদতলে, 12টা থেকে দুপুর 2টো যত কেলুয়া ভুলুয়া ভিখিরি, চায়ের দোকানের বয়, কয়লা দোকানের কুলি, আনাজওয়ালা, ফড়েদের চান করা, কাপড় কাচার কবজায়, দুপুর 2টো থেকে 4টে অবধি কলেজ ইউনিভার্সিটির বই খাতা হাতে জুড়কিদের রাজত্ব, বিকেল 4টে থেকে সন্ধ্যে 7টা পর্যন্ত জল ওয়াটার পোলোর প্লেয়ার আর ডাঙা গোল চেঁচাবার দর্শক ছেলে ছোকরাদের ভিড়ে, সন্ধ্যে 7টা থেকে রাত 10টা মনিয়া পাখির মতন সারি বাঁধা প্রেমিক প্রেমিকাদের 18 থেকে 58 বৃন্দাবন গার্ডেন্স। রাত 10টায় হঠাৎ ফাঁকা হয়ে গেলে একে একে আসতে শুরু করে হোমোসেক্সুয়ালরা। রাত 11টার মধ্যে 15 থেকে 56তে ভরে যায় প্রায় সবকটা আবছা ঘুপসি বেঞ্চ। এই 10টা-12টাটা আমি আপসেট করে ফেলেছি আপ ডাউন করায়। শুধু পাসার্স বাই নিয়ে তাদের তেমন মুশকিল নেই। কেউ আসছে দেখলে একটু হাত গুটিয়ে সরে বসলো, সে পেরিয়ে যেতে আবার কাজ চালু। কিন্তু আমি বারবারই আসছি যাচ্ছি, জমতে জমতে জমছে না। ফলে সবাই মাইগ্রেট করেছে পশ্চিমের বেঞ্চের ঝোপঝাড়ের ভেতর। কয়েকজন একেবারেই ভেগেছে, এবং তাও আমারই জন্য, যদিও নিজে কনফার্মড হোমোসেক্সুয়াল, এবং শুধুমাত্র এই গোলদিঘিতেই আমার দুর্ঘটনাবলী নিয়ে একখানা গোটা উপন্যাস লেখা হয়ে যায়, সেক্স ইন স্কোয়ার। কিন্তু হোমোসেক্সুয়ালিটি আমার জীবনের এক ও অদ্বিতীয় চালিকা শক্তি হলেও সে শক্তি আজ আর ফোর্স নয়, এনার্জি। ইউরেনিয়াম পুড়ে ছাই হয়ে শিশে হয়েছে বললে ভুল হবে, বরং বলতে পারা যায় হিট উইদাউট টেম্পারেচার। So these are just 2 paragraphs of this astonishing text. Can you imagine that? Here is somebody who is talking so openly about his sexuality without any qualms whatsoever. I can't think of any other Bengali writer. Actually, I can't think of any other Indian writer, who is talking about himself in his vernacular language with this level of frankness. So I think that we really should be looking at Krishnagopal Mullick with a little bit more care. I have been trying to ring up his publishers to find out if his books are available or not. Chances are they are not, but I'm going to keep trying. And if, as and when I find that his books are available, you'll be the first to know. So this is where I'm going to end my rather short video this year for Pride, and I hope to be able to see you, at least some of you, on the 23rd for my webinar, and for that I shall wait for your presence. Okay, thank you so much, and hope to see you next time.